assistant professor in the art department, and I teach graphic design courses, sound design, motion graphics, and web design.
All right. What did you attend grad school, and what was your area of focus?
Grad school, I attended Savannah College of Art and Design. I got a MFA in graphic design, and I got a MA in motion graphics.
While in grad school, what was some of the research you conducted?
While in grad school, the research, it actually varied. Most of our research was based on the projects that we were given. So I would say that my research varied from graphic design print projects to various motion graphic projects.
What is some research that you have conducted while a professor here at Jackson State?
While here at Jackson State, I would say, well, currently, I just talk about something that I'm working on now. As well as being a professor here at Jackson State, I am a part-time curator at Smith Robinson Museum. And currently, we are, I guess you could say, rebranding the whole museum. So presently, I'm doing a lot of research based on permanent installations that we're installing here at the museum. They vary. Right now, we're working on a permanent installation that deals with Africa to Mississippi in terms of the content. So I'm doing a lot of research based on African content as well as historical things that deal with Mississippi in terms of African Americans.
When you do research, do you prefer to do qualitative or quantitative research, and why?
Well, to be honest, I would say that in terms of the design industry, you really do both, with quantitative kind of being objective. You have to find a lot of factual information, but at the same time, as a designer, you're interpreting that information. So they both go hand in hand, whereas, qualitative is subjective. So I would say that really you work on, you come from a qualitative and quantitative direction in terms of the way you research because of the industry and what it lends to. So I would say both, but at the same time, it depends on what you're designing for. Some things lend more to an interpretation, whereas others have to be more factual in terms of how it's represented visually in the content that you actually provide to the viewer. So it kind of depends, on the purpose of the design and what it's actually for in terms of what you're trying to communicate and what it is you're trying to convey.
In your opinion, what are the three most important elements of research, and why?
Oh, three most important elements of research. One, I would say, obviously, trying to get factual information as it pertains to what you're researching. With it being what I do, design-based, visuals are important. So images are very, very important in terms of your research. And third, in terms of research, I would say that it's very important to make sure that you're thorough in terms of where you're gathering your research from. So I would say multiple avenues of research. I think as a designer, those are three important aspects that you definitely need to focus on.
All right. Can you talk a little bit about the Brazil research that you did?
Well, in terms of the Brazil research, it kind of focused on a couple things. One, obviously dealt with what we were going to do in Brazil in terms of research. It was for a study abroad, faculty-led study abroad trip. And one, I had to research the area where we were going in terms of the actual program. So a lot of research went into developing where we were going and what we were actually going to do that was pertinent to, I guess you could say, the classes that were being taught as part of the program, to, from my perspective, things that I thought would be interesting for the students in terms of them experiencing, them seeing, and them learning. So that was a lot of the research, just based on people, places, history, just the whole thing of the areas where we were going. Some of the other research that I did dealt with iPads and how they could actually be utilized to complete projects in the class. Since we were out of the classroom environment, I had to look at ways to alleviate the lack of having your typical classroom with your typical software and computers. So those were kind of the two main focuses in terms of research things that I was looking at for the Brazil program.
Is the IRB process required for the research that you've done in the past?
No, it's not required. Approval's not required per se, in the sense, I guess, that you're asking. But I would say here at the museum, obviously, conceptually, whatever I come up with design-wise, based on my research, I do have to get it approved by the manager at the museum. So I guess you could say that's kind of the check and balance that I have in terms of approval with some of the research that I do. Outside of that, no approval checks are needed for the research that I do.
Out of all the research you've done, what is the most extensive research that you've done, or the research you're most proud of?
Research that I'm most proud of. That's kind of a tough one. I would say it would be between two currently. Probably all the work that I'm doing here at the museum, because it's so extensive in terms of what's being done. I mean, basically, I've been given the opportunity to visually rebrand the whole museum, so that's pretty major in itself. And so it definitely involves a lot of research, a lot of time, a lot of effort. This process probably is going to take, I would say, by the time we finish it, it probably would have been maybe 3 years in the making. So quite extensive. I think the other thing that I'm kind of proud of in terms of researching and putting together would be probably the study abroad program, considering that I'd never done it before. It was my first time, so it took me, 2-3 years to actually make it happen. I tried it 1 year and it didn't happen, and then the next year I was able to get it. I was able to, make the program happen successfully. So I'm pretty proud of that, considering that we never had a study abroad program in the Department of Art at Jackson State. And the fact that everything that went into it, it paid off in terms of it being a successful program. So I would say those are probably the two things currently that I'm proud of in terms of research that deals with the two fields I'm in terms of education and design.
When studying abroad, did it make the research more enjoyable than just reading about it, like actually experiencing it and seeing it for yourself?
Well, I would definitely say when dealing with anything that deals with the visual aspect of it being in person, it's always more enjoyable. You can read about things, you can surf the internet and learn in terms of research, but actually physically seeing it and being in it is a completely different thing. So Definitely, I would say it was quite enjoyable, the research, because Brazil in itself is such an amazing place, and have the opportunity to go there and do research and develop a study abroad program for my students. It was a great experience, and I think because of that time and effort, I have a program that really will be beneficial for us students at Jackson State.
Outside of the research you talked about already, do you have any other research in the works right now?
Well, just the nature of what it is I do as a designer, you're constantly doing research, because that's one of the important phases of actually designing. You have to research the subject matter that you're designing for. So as a practicing designer and constantly designing different things, I'm constantly researching different subject matters, different topics, because obviously you have to be very knowledgeable of what it is you're designing for you to convey whatever it is you're trying to convey to the audience that design piece or whatever it is your design is going to be for. So I'm constantly researching.
Right.
Yeah, constantly researching different things. So it's part of the process.
As a researcher, or as a designer, what would be your favorite subject to research, and what would be your least favorite?
To be honest, I can't really pinpoint something that would be the least favorable, because research is interesting to me regardless of the subject matter, because I enjoy learning new things. So I wouldn't say that I have something that I don't like to research, or an aspect of research that I don't like. In terms of type of research or subject matter in terms of research that I enjoy, probably anything that deals with black people. I just enjoy any and everything that deals with the black culture, and learning about it, and just finding out new things. When doing research, what am I exactly looking for? Well, it depends on the project. Depends on the objective for the project. So that lends to, in most cases, what you're going to research. But overall, the biggest thing in terms of research when you're designing for different things is that you want to have a vast knowledge of the subject matter in general. Because obviously, if you're not that knowledgeable of what you're designing for, well, you can make mistakes, or you can convey something that really doesn't deal with the subject matter like it should, or it doesn't convey what you're trying to convey for that subject matter. So with that being said, you have to have a strong overall understanding of the subject matter that you're designing for. So that's like for anything that you're designing for, but you know, it can be a little bit, or should I say, you can pinpoint a little bit more depending on maybe what it is you're trying to say, what it is you're trying to convey for what you're designing. So it just kind of depends. But outside of that, you know, you always need to have a vast knowledge, a sound knowledge of what it is you're designing for. So you can make sure that whatever it is that you are trying to say visually, that it doesn't contradict, or it doesn't say what it is you are trying to say, because of your lack of knowledge from not researching wholly that subject matter.